All right, so it's Wednesday night, and we are uh, taking a little break from the series. We'll start a new one on Sunday, but tonight we're doing a Bible Project video, and um, this is just going to be a preview, or for those of you who missed it or watching this at a later time, kind of a review on what you missed. So we will be going, if you're watching this on Wednesday, we'll be going to Zoom at 7:15 to lives better. You know, we can have whiter teeth, we can have cleaner clothes, we can have fabulous hair. Which, speaking of, in my head, is getting with no barber shop or any place open. So but man, cars, fragrances, diet plans, mouthwash, anything and everything that will make us happy, make us feel better, make us more friends, give us a better life. And later this year, we'll see all kinds of commercials on the political campaigns, campaign ads promising. But a lot of times, just like the commercials, we don't back those things up with actions, or the things aren't as good as promised, or sometimes we just flat out contradict faith versus deeds, which is in chapter 2. The proof of our faith is in our life and how we live it, and that's what James' letter is all about. So we talk about this all the time with our youth. We do them to show our faith as followers of Christ and to be advice about how to do that. It's almost a how-to book on Christian living. So a quick background. James is, as you see up top there, really Jacob, which translates from the Greek. We use James in the translation. I don't know if it's just a translation thing, but that's how it translates into English and into our Bibles, is James. We see him a couple times in the New Testament. He's in the book of Acts, which we've talked about in our last series of the Easter series called Shook. We talked about Acts a lot. And he's mentioned in there the early church, and he's writing this at that time. I think around 49 or 50, the year 49 or 50 AD. So still in that first century early Christian church. And he's also mentioned in the book of Galatians because he is a leader in this early church, and he's specifically a leader in the church in Jerusalem. So he writes this letter, and it's just titled James. Many of Paul's letters were, to the Galatians, to the Colossians, to the Ephesians. He was writing to a group of people, so usually address specific issues among them. But he's not doing that. James writes this letter really to everyone. Quickly, on to the I've got a little connection problem here. Wait a second. So we get into the notes here, starting with the introduction over there. The first chapter is kind of an introduction, and he talks about life being hard. And ironically, he is martyred, or he is murdered shortly after writing this. Not too long after this, he is murdered. But he talks about life being hard. We're not promised life to be easy or good because we become a Christian. Life is going to be hard, and he's expressed that there's going to be trials, but these trials help to shape us and making us complete. Goes on to talk about how we're all fractured people, but Jesus is the one that makes us whole. So he goes on to talk about wholeness, and then the wholeness and completeness that comes from Jesus, because again, we're all sinners, we're all fractured human beings. Another thing interesting, and we're going to talk about this over on Zoom in our small groups, things that really fit today, and especially this next one here, anxiety or trust. We have a choice. We can be anxious and worry about things, or we can trust, which is kind of interesting in this time right now. He goes on to talk about a couple other things in the introduction, talking about poverty and how it can force us to focus or trust on God. And he goes on, and we'll talk about one of the things in the teachings in chapters 2 through 5 about wealth. Wealth is going to pass away anyway, so don't worry about it. And another couple of things in the intro. Don't just listen to God's word, but do what it says. Talking about actions, as we got here. Again, kind of one of the major themes of the book or the letter. And then to love others to love God and to love others. And he goes on, talks about using Jesus as an example, speak with love, serve the poor. To the second part here, the teachings, which are chapters 2 through 5. And as you see there, a lot of his background is from the book of Proverbs, which we know is wisdom, little kind of one-liners, but the book of wisdom, which he knew very well. But also, being Jesus's brother, that is from he quotes from the Sermon on the Mount quite a bit. So a lot of references you'll see if you have a study Bible. We'll go back to the book of Matthew. So Proverbs and the Sermon on the Mount are kind of his key. Is love, and again, things that we'll talk about that kind of apply to us still today. And he talks about this. He says, "We show favor to those who can benefit us, but we neglect those who can't." And he says this is not love. This is the opposite of love. And he talks about how, and we see this quote even today, talking about character. Your character is how you treat others when they can do nothing for you, which is really interesting. But that's kind of the phrase today. But he was saying that we show favor to those who can benefit us. That's maybe kind of human nature, but then we neglect those who cannot do anything for us, and that's not love. He goes on next, talks about genuine faith. He says, "You have faith, but you neglect the needy. Then your faith is dead." Again, kind of leading into the faith versus works thing. The actions betray what you say. Okay, when you're doing that, he goes on to say, "Faith will always result in obedience to Jesus' teaching." He next goes on to a series of things about things we say, our tongue. Next thing on there is we speak. Our mouth unleashes pain on others, and it also unleashes praises to God. It kind of conflicts there, right? Another thing goes on: we condemn or we judge others. We talk behind their backs. We gossip. Again, things that apply to us today. As far as telling the truth, it says we distort the truth and to use it to our advantage, which again, a lot of people will do today. And then again, he goes back and talks about wealth again. And again, the quote in there is, "Your wealth will rot. One day it will rot, just like you will." It's not going to be kind of like, again, today, modern terms, you can't take it with you, right? It doesn't matter. It's not going to go with you. Your wealth will rot one day, just like what he says. And then he finishes off with a prayer, but the last few things he focuses on in these last two lines here, last 2 points, patience and endurance. Our patience and endurance should come from a hope in Jesus, and that is why we have that. And that should lead to faith-filled prayer. Our prayer should be because of our faith in Jesus. So he closes up with a prayer there. So that is kind of a little background and a kind of an outline on the book of James. If you're watching this now, we'll be over on Zoom at 7:15 to kind of discuss some of these things. Or if you're watching this in the small groups, we'll focus on how many of those things apply to us today. They fit still today. James writing this back in the early